to be thinking about how to conceptually create a program that is able to identify palindromes. And so what is a palindrome? Well, a palindrome is where we have a string and it's mirrored from the center outwards. So M is here, and then when we get to the center, there isn't another character to mirror, and therefore this is a palindrome. The same with the word radar, where R is here, and there's another R here, and there's an A, and so it's completely mirrored from the center, which would be the D. You're also able to do this with strings so long as you ignore white spaces, so actual sentences. So for example, a Santa at NASA can also be considered as a palindrome. And now that we have taken that into consideration, when we're going to be thinking about this algorithmically or from the perspective of coding, your first thought might be, okay, well, we can create a double for loop where the outer for loop is pointing towards the first indices, and the next for loop is incremented by 1, so it's pointing to the next indices. And we keep moving this index further and further down for the inner for loop until we get to the mirrored position from where we are. And then we say, okay, well, are these two letters the same? And if they are, then we continue with the outer for loop so that it increments to the next position, in this case S, so long as we're ignoring the white space. And we continue moving the inner for loop outwards until we get to the very end minus by 1, because we've already identified that A is matching with the beginning A. And we keep doing this until we get to the very center. And once we get to the center, we can return a value stating, okay, well, there wasn't any point of this program where the two characters were not matching, and therefore this is indeed a palindrome. But having a double for loop isn't really optimal in terms of the runtime of this program. And so we can do something the same way as how we've been doing it, but without iterating through every single one of the inner for loop's values. And the way that we do that is by having two pointers. One at the very beginning of the string, and one at the very end, through looking at the length of the string minus by 1, given that the array, or the string itself, begins at indices 0. And once we determine that the left-handmost pointer is matching with the right-hand pointer, we can increment the left pointer by 1, and we can decrement the left pointer. And we can keep doing this until we get to the very center. And once we get to the middle, we can say, okay, at any point in this program, was there a non-matching pair of letters? And if there was, we would have broken there. So considering that we've got to the very end, and that the very ending is also matching, or that it's mirrored because there's only one character, we can conclude that this is indeed a palindrome. And through that conclusion, we can then just return out of that program with a true value stating, yes, this is indeed a palindrome.